Well. It's the end of the IPL season, eh? Aditya, you get some great cricket has been played throughout the season. We finally have seen the champions being crowned. I don't think at the beginning of this particular tournament, many would have predicted the Gujarat Titans to be the winners of this IPL tournament. So a very good back end of a tournament, I would say. Mature Miller, I would call him today. Did his job, came in. I was really worried that choke word might pop up, and I'm glad it didn't. So a mature innings from him, and good to see that we've got a new team winning the IPL. Obviously, I think that's it's a good thing to see that as well. But yeah, let's just first talk about the final. It wasn't necessarily a final that a lot of people would say, like, oh, this is like a good example for the IPL, you would say. We would obviously hoping for a much more exciting, much more tight, maybe a tighter affair, maybe going to the wire, maybe even a super over. I don't know. Like, I think a lot of different neutrals would have wanted something a little bit more exciting. Now, for the final specifically, I backed Gujarat Titans. I'm happy to see that they've won because I only back the teams that have South Africans in, and that's just my past. South Africans that start, not that South Africans in, South Africans that start. And this is the reason I have a gripe and a yeah, I've got a gripe with the Rajasthan Royals because they've had quite a good they've had a not a good but a reputation for not playing our South African players, eh? When they sign them. So I've got a little bit of a issue with that team. But how are you guys doing? What did you guys think of the final first and foremost before we get into the talk about the entire season? Let's start with you, Aditya.
Yeah, I think I went into the final as a fairly neutral observer, I suppose, because three of my favorite teams, that is, Chennai, Mumbai, and RCB, were nowhere near in contention. So I was slightly disappointed there, but I suppose Gujarat Titans deserve to be there. They went into the playoffs with 20 points in the league stage. That is a ridiculous number of wins. Out of 14 games to win 10 is clearly a dominant performance, and obviously they're the best team in the tournament, and they deserve to do that. They deserve to be winners. Um, it was I agree with you. It was perhaps an underwhelming final, given that there are 100,000 people in the stadium, and the prime minister was there, the home minister was there. It was a proper spectacle. Uh, so yeah, I think it was a bit underwhelming there, but overall, I think the best team in the tournament won, and I think the key message here is probably uh, that a team that relies on two or three key players will generally not win titles. So yeah, they've sort of spread the responsibility in a way that everyone's been able to contribute, and you look at that 11 of the Gujarat Titans, and you'd see that at least 8 or 9 people have at different times in the tournament single-handedly won them the game.
Werner, what's your thoughts on this particular final? Maybe a little bit underwhelming. You guys weren't chatting as usual in the group as much, so I don't think that maybe it was as exciting as we would have expected it.
Yeah, a little bit underwhelming, but I'm not that surprised. I thought the whole season Rajasthan did very well. It's a bold choice to go with five out and out bowlers. It left their batting lineup a bit thin if their top order didn't fire. But luckily for them, most of the times it did. Just Butler had an amazing season. Of course, 400 striking close to 150, over 800 runs is amazing. He combined well with Edmeyer. Jaiswal had here and there had some good times. Samson had a pretty solid season as well. But I think if you're only really batting up till 6, you always run that risk that somewhere along the line your top order is not going to fire, and there's nobody who's going to dig you out of that hole. And I felt like the moment they lost just Josh Butler and Hetmeyer within like 2 or 3 overs, the game was done. And there was no getting back from that. And that is a problem when you don't have like a better balance. Some all rounders, if you have 5 out and out bowlers who can't really give you much with the bat, it does kind of tilt the balance a bit. So I'm not too surprised. Happy for the Titans. I thought they played exceptionally well. They were the best team in the tournament, and they definitely deserved to win. I think a great season for David Miller. Again, I was expecting him to have a great season, just based on how he's been playing for South Africa. I thought going into it, because I saw that Jason Roy got injured, I thought, okay, yes, here we go. This is going to be David Miller's season because he's going to get consistent game time. So the only thing he needed was a solid a top 4-5 batting position, and then backing him, and they did that, and he absolutely delivered. So that was great to see. I thought with them, they had contributions all round. They stole games from nowhere between Miller, Tawatia, and Rashid Khan, even with the bat. With the ball, you have Rashid Khan and Shami delivered with the new ball all the time. They had Rashid Khan here and there, Lucky Ferguson fired. They didn't have that great a season, but all round, they just had contributions from everyone. And I think that's really what made the difference. I think they carried, maybe the only one that really carried was Matthew Wade. Somebody they can look to maybe adjust coming next year that will just make them stronger. So it's awesome that in the auction people thought, nah, this team isn't really that great. How will they do? And they end up winning the tournament, which is fantastic because they really rallied around each other. I thought Hardik Pandya led them very well. I still believe Gary Kirsten is a great coach. Even though a coach can only do so much, but to instill some confidence, a clear game plan, backing the players, it makes a difference. So yeah, good all round. Not the best final, but it's really it's because the Titans have been so much better than the other teams.
Just to add to what Werner said, what you said about the Gujarat Titans, the Rajasthan Royals did the exact opposite, right? And a lot of the structural flaws in the team of the Rajasthan Royals was masked by the fact that Butler had a fantastic season. Because you take Butler's 800 runs out of the equation and make that 400, and they don't even make the playoffs.
Crazy.
So that's the example of a team that is over reliant on two individuals in the batting order, and they made the playoffs in the finals, but ultimately on the day that they required those two individuals to perform, and they didn't, they sort of crashed. And you look at all the games that Rajasthan Royals have lost, and you'll see that these individuals have typically not performed on those days. So it's interesting because Rajasthan Royals tries to be that modern sort of NFL sort of team that invests a lot in analytics and data crunching, and they've got some new investors from the US who are modeling a new type of data system that will evaluate players using a new metric. We still have to learn more about that, but apparently they spent 8 months in the auction to come up with the players that they did, and I think that's where we have that relationship between instinct and data, right? Because I look at the Rajasthan Royals team, and you can see obvious holes in that team, but at the same time, there is a certain rationale that went behind creating that team. So, yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting conversation, I guess.
How much do you think that the Gujarat Titans' form and the way they performed has to do with the fact that they're a new team and they don't really necessarily have that hoodoo over their heads of like, we have to win this time, we have all the fans behind us now that we have to impress because they expect us to win. Do you think that helped their performances throughout to be able to play with more freedom, maybe, especially like the likes of David Miller and some of the other guys like Shubman Gill even?
I don't think so. In fact, on the other hand, I think it's empowered them a little bit because, after they won that first playoff, Hardik Pandya said that I've played in 4 finals and I've won all of them. I expect to win the 5th one as well. So I think it's a sense of confidence that he's got there. And, from what I've heard about the Gujarat Titans change room, from all the players, is that it's a very relaxed environment, and there's a lot of conversation about giving love to players and ensuring that they're able to perform, whether they succeed or fail. And I think somewhere that's worked because Ashish Nehra is the only head coach I've seen who's wearing a reverse cap and strolling around the ground in his shorts, just chilling with players. So there's something there, and I think it highlights the importance of having a happy change room.
Werner, let's move on with this conversation. I have a little bit of like categories that I would like to kind of go through to give this kind of a nice holistic show, to make this a nice holistic show. I want to start with first and foremost your SA player of the IPL so far. We are not very lucky this time around with regards to the bowler category to have had a lot of guys besides to be performing at the best level. But KG is third on the in the purple cap group over there. So like good performance from him throughout the season, even though his team not necessarily coming to the party. But generally speaking, who's your SA player of the tournament and why? And then Aticha, I would like to also know who you think is your player of the season as well.
Easy, David Miller. He consistently won games for his team. He contributed well throughout. Pulled a few games out of the fire. The first qualifier, he helped when that game got them into the finals. Then he again in the finals, even though they didn't have that much to chase, he came in. He brought some intent back into the innings when they was really stuttering there for a while. They didn't need much, but getting a 30 odd of 18, 19 balls just wrestled back that momentum in their half and made it easy at the back end. So throughout, he's been great. I thought he's had a very calm head, just gone about his business. And I don't think any of the. We had quite a few good performances in the tournament. KG did well. I thought Markram did pretty well as well for the Sunrisers. Faf was decent. Faf was kind of an interesting one. It was up and down, right? He had like extremely good innings, and then he had very low lows. So it was kind of a patchy type of tournament for him, where he made a lot of runs. He still ended probably in the top 10 run scorers, but it was like outlying performances for him. A number 5 says Aditya. So yeah, it's been like
Just
it's
below
been
David,
like
yeah.
yeah, and I actually think that the Gujarat Titans,
Seventh.
because they had like Hardik Pandya, Supman Gill, and David Miller all like in the top half, in that top 10 list, and that really helps when your top order and middle order fire like that. So, but yeah, to come back to it, definitely David Miller for me.
Hmm. Now, obviously, if we look at the runs list, obviously Quinton de Kock is the highest scorer. You know, that massive 100 obviously pushes it up, but he got 350s as well this season. So the same amount of 50s actually as David Miller. But you can, for me personally, oh no, actually I think David got two. Yeah, David has two and Quinny has three. But it's about the importance of those knocks. You know, particularly Miller's last knock was so important in a pressure situation. That really stands out to me. Moments stand out to me like that when you perform. Quinny, this season, Aditya, you've not only spoken um, about Quinny. We haven't only spoken about Quinny himself, but we've also spoken about the Lucknow Super Giants as well as a franchise this season. You've raised some issues with him, etc. But what was your feel about Quinny this season? I mean, other than that, I mean, he's had some great performances this season, and it was very entertaining to watch him bat at some points.
Yeah, obviously that 140 was a standout, and it's probably third or fourth on the list of highest scores by an individual by a batter in the IPL. Um, so undoubtedly, it's brilliant. Um, that innings was brilliant, and a couple of 50s that was good too. So I think overall, you score 500 odd runs in a in an IPL, you've had a good season, no doubt about it. Um, I think if there's anything, it's probably consistency. That's where that's where we generally want more from Quinny, right? Because um, you want Quinny to perform in the big games. You want him to perform in an eliminator, um, and yeah, I suppose you want a bit more game sense from him post power play, because we know that he can take advantage of that power play. But I think post power play is what we've generally been um, talking about a lot. And obviously, he sort of put our questions to rest when he scored that 140. But I suppose there's still some work to be done, right?
Yeah. Now, next category that I want to go through is moment of the season. Now, for me personally, I'm going to talk about it from my perspective first and start with my moment of the season. Now, my moment of the season is not it's very biasly driven. It's what made me feel a certain way or made me feel personally a certain way. It's not necessarily what everybody else is probably going to say is their moment. But my moment for me was seeing David Berevskitty's debut. For me this season, I think that was remarkable for me to see how everything unfolded from a media perspective, around him, his friends, everybody in his circle, from how things went from when we interviewed him to him making his debut, how he matured, how he improved, the way he's developed as a young cricketer, confidence and all of that. For me, that was my moment of the season. It was great to see a youngster like him get an opportunity after, of course, a South African youngster get an opportunity like that and get rewarded for the good performances that he's been putting in the World Cup, etc., leading into this tournament. It was good to see that big smile on his face when he was meeting all his heroes and watching all the interviews with them. Teacher was very active with regards to sending me a lot of clips when he did see them as well. And me, when I'm scrolling through, you could see some things on YouTube now and again. But it was awesome to hear him speak about Sashin and all his heroes and being able to watch him be there and be so fascinated. I felt like at certain points I was living vicariously through him. So it felt really good to see him achieve those type of things. Let's go around the room. Werner, what was your moment of the season? And then Aticha, get your moment of the season too after that.
Two moments. One was the 4 sixes in a row by Devil Rivers versus Chahar. I enjoyed that very much. And then my second moment wasn't the South African one, but it was those 2 sixes by Tawatia when they needed 12 of the last two deliveries. When he hit those 2 sixes, it was just insane. And that coming off after the bowler, I think, missed stumps. He shouldn't have even been on strike. David Miller hit the ball back to the bowler and he threw to the stumps for no real reason and missed it like by far. And they got through, and that brought Watia back on strike, and then he hit 2 sixes to win that game. I think that sums up like the Titans season. They were clinical in those crunch moments when you thought like they were already out of it. They somehow still managed to win. So yeah.
I think I'll give you an Indian and a South African moment, a little bit separate. So I think if you talk about an moment from an Indian perspective, it's when Virat Kohli got out after hitting an inside edge to his thigh pad and got caught a short fine leg. And he gets out, he goes off the field, and he's basically screaming to the heavens, "What else do you want me to do?" Like you can actually tell, like from the footage, that's literally what he's saying. And in that, I think Virat Kohli throughout his career has always been like this godlike figure, who's hitting centuries at will. 17 international hundreds, and I think in that moment he just felt human. And I thought that was personally I found that moment to be quite touching in a lot of ways. Uh, so I think that certainly stands out for me because incredibly in the next game he scored 73, in a must-win situation. So he got back to his ways again. But if I'm talking about if I think about the South African perspective, um, I think generally just watching Faf du Plessis go about the way he did with respect to captaining Bangalore was huge because that is we have to remember that RCB is among the most popular teams in the sporting world, let alone the IPL. It has its fan engagement is in the billions, so that's a massive franchise to lead. And I think the way he went about it, the consistency and the calmness that he showed, and the runs that came off his own bat as well, I thought generally how he went about that was fantastic.
I think I can throw another touching moment in there, and that was when Quinton de Kock's celebration for that 100. I mean, I felt the tears well up in my eyes, and I really did feel it when I saw him celebrate the way he did. And it was so good to see him have that passion because we don't see that from Quinny very often. He's a very So he's a very calm celebrator normally. He just puts up his bat, takes off his helmet, and just nods and quickly gets back to business. But the passion that he showed in the way he screamed and the way he looked up and everything, and it was a very touching moment for me too.
And when he's asked, when he's basically told, well, thank you for the entertainment, Quinton, he says, no problem.
And also that Suki dance was also a very big moment as well. So what's some of the moments or the funny things that you guys have seen throughout the season off the field, from the videos that the IPL have put out, etc., that really you thought was really hilarious and insightful? Obviously those conversations from Deva Previs was entertaining. I think some of the content from so obviously seeing Faf, the way Faf and Virat's bromance was just like bromance 2.0. It's like after Abe de Villiers, he just replaced him with another South African. Oh, he loves his South African place. Uh, South African meat, if you don't understand what I was saying over there. But what are some of the off the field moments or the funny moments that you guys maybe saw and you really enjoyed?
I think that the entire sequence of events when the Mumbai Indians had to win in order to get the RCB to qualify, I thought that was unbelievable. Like
That was
that
awesome.
entire sequence of events, because you should have seen the emotion in the RCB camp at the time. It was insane. And the RCB also like geniuses. They're like, today from red we're turning blue and things like that. Because Mumbai's philosophy is that they are one family, and RCB's is play bold. So they sent out a
Uh,
message saying that the Mumbai Indians, we are one family, but today we hope you can play bold. So I think that sort of thing is just clever, and
that's smart.
I loved it because there were literally hordes and hordes of RCB fans at the Wankhede Stadium cheering for Mumbai, and that was unbelievable. And
Wow.
that day in the RCB camp, everyone was literally watching that game like they were fans. And Tim David, who last year was playing for RCB, won it for Mumbai. And they're thanking Mike Hessen for it, saying, "Oh, Mike just knew it. He released Tim David so he could go to Mumbai and then win it for RCB next year." So I think that sort of stuff was pretty cool.
And that selfie picture that we got from Faf. Vera, for you, I want to get back to you, Aditya, because there's some other questions I would like to ask you.
Yeah, that was quite funny. Lead up to that game, I was thinking to myself. I think I did post a tweet about it as well, saying that imagine Devon Brevis talks his way into the team and then helps Mumbai, helps RCB by winning the game for Mumbai, because he would have so dearly wanted to play for RCB ahead of the tournament, probably, if it wasn't picked for Mumbai. And so I thought that was quite cool how that worked out. But funny moments. I didn't watch too many of the off-field stuff, to be fair, but I did see some nice camaraderie between Devon Brevis and Tilak Varma. I felt like it was almost like a Cody AB type of bromance going on, and I know Tilak Varma. They both have this bit of a streak. They love to play pranks and stuff, and I know Varma at some stage he removed like the Oreo cookies from each other, and then scraped out the white and put on toothpaste between it, and then gave it to Tim David and Riley Meredith and stuff. That was pretty funny.
Yeah. Um, what I want to also say is there's also been some awesome matchups that we've seen and that have been publicized probably by a lot of media houses, and that's also Umran Malik and Dale Steyn combining together at their particular franchise. It seems that Umran probably learned a hell of a lot from Steyn. Has Malik been quite vocal about that, though, Aditya, from what you've seen around? Because I mean, there would have been a lot of interviews that we weren't obviously wasn't translated to English.
Yeah, Umran Malik doesn't speak a lot, but I'm sure that he's going to be preserved like a jewel. As soon as he went back to his hometown, chief minister, um, the chief minister basically promised promised him all the support that he would ever need and things like that. So I assure you, um, Umran Malik is going to benefit from all the expertise that's around him. Whether that's Dale Steyn, Brian Lara, Moodley, Tom Moody, all of these individuals. So,
So, what I also want to ask you to throw in the mix is there is a question from a fan on Facebook that left a question for you, but I'll get to that at the end of the show because it's kind of looking towards, where you could say to the future. But what I want to ask you right now is first and foremost, you went to some of the games. Tell us about some of your experiences this season, being at the stadium, watching games live, um, what those experiences were like, and what moments that like really stood out to you. Was there anything funny you saw, or interesting you saw being at the stadiums and at the games?
yeah, it was electric. I think that first game of the IPL really stood out between Chennai Super Kings and Kolkata Knight Riders because I think I was going back to the stadium after 3 years, and a lot of Indians were returning to the stadiums that were gradually going to be full capacity. So when MS Dhoni came in and he scored a 50 in that game, it was crazy. It's like some of the footage that I posted on the channel. It's probably like not even 25% of the noise that we actually experienced there. Because he's that kind of an icon. Uh, so I think that was certainly a memorable moment. And then specifically, I think watching KG bowl to David Warner was great. And although KG wasn't at his best in that game and he got absolutely smashed, it was great to watch because he was bowling towards me. So I could feel the speed, and I was able to appreciate Warner's brilliance in that knock as well. So I think that was great. Watching Umran Malik bowl, man, that man is literally spitting fire. To be able to consistently bowl at 150 odd, it's probably the only bowler that I saw bowling, but I could never see the ball. And it was just phenomenal. And of course, I have to applaud young Marco Janssen because I was there when he inflicted the trauma of the 68 all out for RCB, and they got Faf Virat and Anuj Rawat out in the same over. So I witnessed that, and it was brilliant.
Also, Mohammed Shami was excellent this tournament too. I have to say that before I forget. I think
Outstanding.
he was really, really good and really like even in this game, he only took one wicket and obviously caused a run out as well. But the way he was moving that ball up front, it's dangerous that man. Yeah. There's a question on Facebook. I just want to throw at you, teacher. I'm sure that you could probably weigh in after this, Werner, because it would be a nice follow up to see how we can maybe as South Africans benefit from this. But the question is for Aditya, and it's what's the criteria for the players to get picked to play in the IPL? What do they look at when doing so? Now, I can just maybe give a quick before there's obviously agents that will there's a list that goes around. You can obviously explain it more in detail, but I know that agents put names forward for their clients that want to be a part of it, and there's an initial round of a list basically that goes around before the actual auction. So can you maybe just give us some extra insight into that, Aditya?
So I'm going to assume that the question is asked from the perspective of overseas players, right?
Yeah, most likely is.
Okay. So the first thing is that every team has got 25 players, right, of which 8 are overseas players. So you have to take that into account. And thereafter, it's about the needs of the team, whether it's for that specific season or whether it's for future seasons. Because remember, Mumbai haven't got David Brevis to ensure that he delivers performances this season. They're looking at him as a long-term prospect for Mumbai, so that 3-4 years down the line, he's probably going to be one of the players that will be retained for Mumbai. So teams look at players in different ways. You know, Ideally, they'd want them to perform now and then still be that investment for the future. But that depends on the team's priorities. Um, so that's certainly there. And look, based on that, like Tristan Stubbs, for example, that signing was based on an immediate need that Mumbai had at that point, which was a death over hitting. Right? So that's why Tristan came into the mix. Um, but beyond that, I think it depends entirely on what the team needs for
And
that particular season.
sorry. And from an India perspective, like, is there criteria about how many? Not how many, but whatever the case would be. I don't even know what the question I'm asking you there.
So that's 17 players,
Okay.
17 Indian players. And look, generally, there are trials that are held by each team.
Okay.
So players come to these trials, they're given different scenarios, um, batting and bowling, and they're asked to execute. Now, it's also possible that a team may like a player, and you may sort of graduate through those different phases of those trials, but you may still not get picked because of a balance issue. So for example, there's a young player in the Lucknow Super Giants called Ayush Badoni. Okay, he's a fantastic young talent, and I hope that Lucknow invests in Ayush Badoni for a long time. So Ayush Badoni was identified by the Delhi Capitals, and he went to their trials. He did really well in those trials, but for whatever reason, they couldn't pick him. But at the same time, the Lucknow Super Giants assistant coach is a man called Vijay Dahiya, who is also from Delhi and is very familiar with Delhi cricket. So he knew that Ayush Badoni had tried out for Delhi, but was not selected for whatever reason. So he brought him to Lucknow, and and he did play a couple of good innings for them. So
Okay.
these things also happen.
Okay. Similarly, like I see, you can see certain players, but that for the MSL, for example, there was a lot of scouting happening before the tournament, before they added to the group. So I got an opportunity to see some of those coaches, how they operated, etc. They would put their names in the hat. So it's interesting to see how you guys do it. The trials is a very good idea. I like that idea. Werner,
And it
for
happens year
you,
round.
uh,
Sorry, just one
oh,
more
is
thing.
it?
It happens year round. So like obviously not in the monsoons, but it basically happens all year round. So even though the IPL is a 2 month tournament between March and May, the work towards that tournament happens all year round, and they're constantly looking for players. They're constantly looking for overseas players, scouting, and they're ensuring that all the players that they have in the system are tracking well with respect to their training, skill work, and fitness.
Okay, Werner. So the next one's going to be a little bit of a more fun one. What is the uh, what could you? I wouldn't say clumsy moment, but what is the the most snubbiest moment that you have noticed in this IPL the time around? Like, what is the moment that you were like, oh, that was embarrassing? The most embarrassing moment so far in this IPL. It could also be a heartbreaking moment where you this felt really bad for either team or player or something like that. They went out in a funny way, or they were dismissed in a funny way, or just any funny moment that you thought that stood out with regards to games that you saw during this period.
Yeah, you're asking me a difficult question now. I'm trying to think about it. Um, at some stage somebody was like bowled in the groin area multiple times, and they just who was it? I can't remember now, but it continually happened, and like let's just felt sorry for the guy. Like, okay, he's here to play cricket, not to be on his haunches the whole time. I felt sorry for Tristan Stubbs getting 2 matches. One, he was out early with a good ball where it was swinging all well, he came in against the ball that was still swinging around. He's probably not faced too many of that before, being a player who comes in at number 6 generally. And then the second match, backing up too far and getting run out that way, never nice. So he didn't get like that real opportunity to show what he could do. So that was a bit heartbreaking, but and at least I'm consoled by the fact that we will see him for the Proteas, hopefully at least in 2 matches against India. So looking forward to that. But you should probably come back to me about this one. Let me think about it a bit.
Yeah, okay, cool. Did you anything that jumps out to you?
Yeah, I don't. It's okay. So I think there was that game between the Rajasthan Royals and RCB when Riyan Parag came and really made a statement. He scored a 50, and then towards the end, he got into some sort of an argument with Harshal Patel. And I think Harshal Patel's been one of the lead sort of death bowlers. And he got absolutely smashed that day by a young 20-year-old kid. And so I thought that to a certain degree was quite funny because Riyan Parag still looks like that little boy. So I thought that was fairly interesting. But I have to say that I what was really funny was Matthew Wade's reaction to being LBW in that one game. Where according to DRS the ball just sort of changed direction and he went in and you could see him swearing his way off the field and then he went in and just smashed his bat in the dressing room. It's like you're going to get fined. Why would you do it? you know
Yeah.
There was another moment of Riyan Parag where he ran in from, I think, long on, and he dove and he took the
Yes.
catch and he celebrated and he went crazy and
Then it was not
showing
out.
like he's the man, and then showing it's out, and then the replay showed that it bounced.
I was
like that whole thing was for nothing.
I was there for that game. I saw it live.
Uh,
So yes,
because when I saw it, I was like, I think this bounced, but he's acting like, yeah, no, it carried comfortably, and I'm like, well, let's see what the replays say, and it bounced. I'm like, yeah, I thought so.
Yeah, and Matthew Hayden, he started talking about karma and things like that. It's like, young man, this can very well turn back to you or something like that. It was hilarious.
I have to say that though I am not a huge fan of Australian commentators in general, since not since Richie Beno really, um, I do enjoy the sayings Ados has. He has a few funny ways of putting things that I quite enjoy, and I thought Graham Smith he was very good when he came into the com box. Good to hear Ravi Shastri today. I think he should get back into commentating in the English commentary box. Hopefully we hear him in the series against India. Yeah.
Okay, guys. So I'm gonna read out a couple of comments first, and then the end of the show. Shiraj saying SA is lucky to have young gun players like Deva Previs, Tristan Stubbs, Cheryl Kutsia, Daniel Smith, John O'Bird, Matthew Bretsky, Van Tonda, Rwanda Swat, Mitchell Van Buren, De Sozi, and Ferreira. Not all of them are youngsters, but I do get what you mean. Hoping Miller will score some same like this when he comes to play for SA. Now, that's something that we can actually talk about a little bit. What do you think we need to do to get the best out of Miller, guys? We've spoken about the case for him at number 4. I mean, Neo Falani came on the show and gave him some insight, and it actually looked like an interesting conversation for a case for him to bat at number 4. But what do you guys feel was done right with David Miller in this particular team? Because for me personally, in previous tournaments for Rajasthan Royals when he was there, he wasn't the same David Miller as we saw for the Gujarat Titans. So what do you think they've done? Because we saw flashes of that at the Kings 11 when he was there. We saw flashes of that David Miller that we all love. But I felt like when he's moved to Rajasthan, it wasn't the same. He wasn't the same type of player that I remember. So it always looks like a resurgence for him as a player in world cricket, not only in South Africa, not only for the IPL. So what's your guys' thoughts on that, and how we can get that out of David?
He didn't get that consistent run at Rajasthan, and that some just that solidity of knowing that this is his spot and they're backing him to do like the Titans did. The problem is with Rajasthan is that they're like their overseas slots almost cemented in. They had Josh Butler, Ben Stokes, and Jofra Archer. So they literally had one place to play with. And so they gave David Miller like 2 games batting at 6, trying, telling him he needs to score off 10 balls, he needs to score 25, and that's his role, which is a difficult role for any player. And then if you fail, you're out of the team, and then we're going to try somebody else. So that's a tough way to try and go about it in the IPL. So I thought the fact that he had some backing in this tournament, they told him, "You're going to bat at 5. We need you to bat us through if we're in difficult situations, or strike it big at the back end. But we're going to back you to do it. We're not going to just drop you if you have a poor game. You are the guy we are backing." And I think it helped that Jason Roy wasn't there, because then there wasn't one of those overseas slots in the top order was like cemented in. Like, I always knew David Miller will probably do better than Matthew Wade in this tournament, and it ended up being that way. But yeah, so I just think that solidity, knowing his place is safe, knowing the clear role, coming in with great form from the Proteas, it all just kind of added up.
To add to that, before you answer, Aditya, it's David Miller is the most underrated best batter and most underappreciated batsman. Gujarat gave him proper run, and having faith in him rewarded them with the best performances. Do you agree with that statement?
100%. I think that's key, right? Ensuring that you communicate well, you give that security to a player, and at the end of the day, you just tell them that, listen, it's a game. We understand that there's going to be success and failure, and we back you through both. And I think that's exactly what the Titans did really well. Um, another thing is that you have to make sure that you use a player's strengths well. And I think that's what they did. They knew exactly where Miller's strengths were, and they used him in that way. Which I don't think Rajasthan did at all. And the challenge for South Africa is going to be like what I mentioned, a couple of days ago, that if South Africa are 85 for 1 after 9 overs in a T20 game, they should be brave enough to send Miller so that he has time to build an innings and then launch towards the end. And if he fails, it's okay. It's not the plan that was wrong, it's the execution. So I think the best way to use Miller would require some amount of courage from the management. And I don't know if that's been happening off late, because you see David Miller in the West Indies coming in the 18th over and being asked to make an impact. It's difficult. Right? How many players can do that?
Yeah, I agree. I think he needs to come in based on the situation, not necessarily you are number 5 and you will only come in at number 5. It needs to be, how many overs do we give David Miller? Because he's that type of destructive batter, especially when he gets set first. He's so much better when he gets that 10, 12 balls to feel things out, to get himself going, and then launching, than it is when he comes in with 2 overs to go and tell him strike from ball 1. He can do that probably if they just bowl it into the slot the whole time. But he's good enough to hit good balls away to the boundary and for sixes once he's set. So I think that's the difference. He needs a few balls. You can't expect him to just hit from ball 1. So as Aditya said, if we are 1 down at the 9th, 10th over, and we have a good base, then send in David Miller. If he then fails, it's okay. We have Aiden Markram, we have Arasi, maybe we'll have Tristan Stubbs, we'll see. But we have then those other guys. But I would back Miller in that situation to capitalize. He's good enough. He's shown he's been in great form. He is an orthodox batter as well. He can hit orthodox drives, pulls, whatever you need. It's not a blind slugger. He never has been. So I've called for him to bat at number 4, especially if you want to give it a number. I've called for him to bat at number 4 in limited overs cricket for a long time now, and I've said he needs to bat at this spot because he's good enough to lay the foundation and launch at the back end, rather than just asking him to play 2 or 3 overs.
So Bibik adds to that too. He says Miller's 95 was the most important of the season, and Gujarat got momentum back, started believing they can win any game to complete team performance. Um, Aditya Kohli should be happier that most of this happening in the IPL. Now he looks better while going to play in bleed blue.
I think what Vivek is saying
Don't
that
know what that means.
Kohli should be happy that his lack of form has been through the course of the IPL, and now he's got to look better while he plays for India. Um, well, look, I think among other things, his technique has never been has his technique hasn't been much of an issue in the IPL. I think everyone, including Kohli, would acknowledge that he would benefit from some sort of a break because he's played non-stop cricket since January 2021, and that's just too much. So, not to mention that at the time India was going through its worst sort of COVID outbreak, the bubbles were really tight, and that's continued right up to this IPL. So,
Mhm.
it's it's not really a technical or form issue as much as it is a mental one.
Yeah. I mean, we've spoken a lot about this freedom. I mean, that's I keep punting that interview with New Falani because of the insight he gave us from a behind the scenes buzz in South Africa with regards to domestic cricket. Now, Easton's was a very successful franchise when Richard Das Neves was there. He really transformed that team in their mentality on the way they played cricket going forward. And he spoke a lot about having a certain style of cricket and making sure that the everybody within the team buys into that ethos. Whereas Nsiba says over here to Aditya, he says, to what Aditya said, he says Mark Boucher is not a risk taker coach, but a safe coach, and he's a conservative in his approach. He won't take that risk with Miller. And it's an interesting point because it comes across like that sometimes. That's the case with certain selections. Not being very brave with certain selections, giving maybe players that are going to strike the ball a lot better, opportunities early, um, and experimenting with youngsters has not necessarily maybe been something that people would associate with Boucher. But when we look at it, he's actually given quite a few youngsters opportunities this season since he's been there. Whether it was forced or not, we won't know. Um, but it seems that Boucher should have a style of cricket that the players want to play and commit to it. Um, we've spoken about maybe having this versatile type of cricket where we can play players according to situations. Um, but maybe that's a little bit too soon for South Africa. Maybe they need to first specialize in getting one thing right consistently and a certain style of play so consistently right, and then build from there. But it makes it hard when you don't know what the plan is and when a coach is going to be safe and when he's not, when he's going to get fired or when he's not. Because every time a coach gets fired, it resets everything and you start from over again. So hopefully there can be some sort of structure from the DOC when we get a DOC straight down to the way the coach decides they want to play their cricket. And then that can be consistent in South African cricket so that we know that we can have some sort of pipeline cycle pumping talent into the system and then it's consistent through from domestic cricket right down. Let's get your final thoughts for this season and your learnings from this particular IPL season would be a nice way to end off from a South African perspective. So let's start with Werner and then end off with Aditya.
I think something we haven't talked about really, and something I've noticed about successful T20 teams is something that they often speak about or talk as the engine room. What is the engine room of your batting lineup? And those are the guys that generally win you games. That 4, 5, 6, 7. Those guys who can finish off games or who can set up a game for you with the bat. It's often comes down to those guys. Mumbai had it for a long time between the two Pandya brothers and Pollard and maybe Nathan Coulter or whoever it might be hitting those long balls at the back end. And that is what that pulled the Titans through often in this tournament between Miller and Pandya and Tawatia and Rashid Khan. It's funny because Tawatia didn't even bowl. I can't remember if he bowled in any of the matches. He was literally there for that role with the bat, which is quite funny, seeing as he is a bowler as well. But so that engine room is quite a critical one, and I feel like the Proteas can have the same type of thing. They can have a four Markram, five Miller, six potentially Stubbs. We'll see how it goes, but they can have sort of that engine room in the middle, which is so important. So hopefully, maybe we will have Markram, Miller, Stubbs, Pretorius, or whoever it might be. That is going to be so crucial to us. So if you can lay a good platform and you have this engine room in the middle, then you're going to win a lot of games with the bat. We do know we have the bowlers. We have great bowlers. We have the world number one spinner in Shamsi. Norkia, when he gets back to full form, has been fantastic for us in T20s. Rabada has been on and off good. Hopefully he'll come good as well. And I feel we do have the bowlers to put a lot of games through, but it has often been our batting who's lacked a bit, and it's lacked a bit of intent. So I really hope we play with a more positive approach. Let's not be content with a 120, 125, 130 strike rate through most of the game and then try to strike big in the last two. Let's try and put that pressure on throughout. Look to get at least a boundary every over. Look to be more of a proactive team than a reactive team.
Well, I think this IPL has been very different. Despite the stats suggesting that this IPL has witnessed the most 200 scores ever, and I think how many 2,000 boundaries or something like that. It's crazy. Um, 2,000 boundaries over 1,000 sixes. So this IPL has been entertaining. It's been some close games, and I'm sure that there's going to be a sense of withdrawal for the next few days, given that we've basically had the IPL going continuously for 2 months. Uh, but among other things, this IPL has been great for fast bowlers. And if you look at 10 teams, at least all of them have got three fast bowlers who can clock 145 and above. Which is really encouraging for Indian cricket. But at the same time, it also highlighted the fact that when you make T20 cricket, batter and bowler friendly, it can still produce tight results. And this is probably the first time we've seen the IPL have fast bowlers make such an impact in India. So perhaps this is a template for the IPL going forward. Uh, but yeah, I think I was really impressed with the fast bowling crop that came out of India, and also the batting. Because Butler had an exceptional season with 800 plus runs, but if you look at the rest, nobody crossed that 650 mark. And that was K. Rahul, I believe. Um, so I thought that was quite interesting. And from a South African perspective, I think there's a lot to learn, and players like Tristan Stubbs and Devon Previs will have their growth expedited by their experience with Mumbai Indians. Um, but I completely agree with what South Africa can be that proactive team, provided they get the selection right, and they use players based on their strengths. Uh, but hopefully, in time, those decisions will be made.
Okay, guys, thanks a lot for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Aditya, thanks a lot for coming on the show. Werner, too, for sharing your thoughts. We'll be back again tomorrow for another daily show as per usual. Don't forget to smash the like button. Don't forget to comment, share, subscribe. Please click that notification bell for all future videos as well. But also get involved with Cricket Fanatics Magazine monthly. Every issue is 100% free, straight to your inbox every single month. Link is on the screen as well as in the description. We are busy working on the next issue as we speak. Actually, these people writing articles, getting them in to me and sending them to me. So we're going to be setting that up. It's all on Club Cricket. It's a Club Cricket edition to give some insight into club cricket and how it works in South Africa and how we can improve it to actually produce more players in general, players of color, quality youngsters, all of those type of things we want to talk about, see how club cricket plays a huge part in that pipeline to the Proteas, etc., and into domestic cricket. So please download the latest issue as well as every back issue, and you'll get a notification to your email when the new issue is out, which is hopefully going to be on Tuesday, guys. Also become a Patreon. Link is on the screen as well as in the description. You'll see all the instructions over there, what we offer for you guys. When we hit the 20 Patreon, Mark will probably start doing exclusive videos and live streams for you guys alone. So please go and help us out over there by becoming a patron today. And you know to go to cricketfanaticsmag.com for all your regular daily updates. Thanks a lot for watching, everybody, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow with another daily show. Take care and enjoy the rest of your week. Peace.